In this tutorial, we'll be creating this 3D animated text with a colorful edge glow. So I've already got my text layer created, and to save some time, I'm just gonna select my text here, go into my window and Animation Composer, which is a free plugin that includes a bunch of presets that you can animate different shapes, text, and more. So by simply going into the text animation here, we can go ahead and select one of these and we get this cool little preview. So let's go with this one, click on in, and that simply animates the text with a few clicks. Now let's go ahead and turn it into a 3D layer, and I'm also going to create a camera, and I want to make sure I'm set to advanced 3D right here so we can extrude the text. Now we'll go into the text layer, scroll down to geometry options, and we'll set the bevel depth here to 4. I'll change the bevel style to angular, and let's give it some extrusion, maybe 100 should be enough, which basically gives it some depth. And the animation is obviously following along. Let's go ahead and add the color for stroke effect that you've seen in the beginning. So to do this, I'm going to be using Saber. Let's create a new solid, and we'll call the Saber, make it black, and hit OK. I'll add Saber to this layer, and under Customize Core, I'll select Text Layer and select my animated text. Let's adjust some of these settings here. So I'll bring down the glow to 15. We'll keep the spread at 0.5, bring down the bias to 0.15, and lower the core size to maybe 1.5. You don't want to go too crazy because we're going to have multiple layers of this. Next, we'll set the starting size here to 0 and the ending size to something like 70, which gives us sort of like a feather between the starting and ending points here. And let's animate the stroke here. So at the first frame, it's going to look like this because the text is not visible. So what we're going to do is set the end offset to 0. I'll set a keyframe here, and right about where my text reveals, I'm going to set it to 100. Let's hit U to bring up the keyframes. I will select them, hit F9, go into my graph, and make a simple adjustment like so. So if we play this back, we've got the text animation following the original animation. Now to give this some continuous movement, I'm going to click on Mask Evolution here, and let's go to about 10 seconds and give it one full evolution. So this just gives it this continuous animation along the mask path. Then I'll go into my render settings here, and I'll set the composite setting to transparent. And now we can see it overlaying on top here. Let me disable the text for now, just so we can focus on the stroke. And I'll duplicate my Saber layer, and I'll change the color maybe to green. And if we hit U to bring up the keyframes, on my evolution keyframe here, I'll set it to -1 instead of 1. So basically now it's going to go into a different direction, and we have two colors following along the strokes. Now the only problem here is if we enable our text layer and we want to animate our camera. So for example, I'll hit P and hold down Shift, hit A to bring up the position and point of interest. Then with my mouse, holding down Alt, I'll basically create a simple animation going around our text. So something like this. And if we play this back, I just got this basic rotation around my text. And as you can see, the Saber layers are not following along. And if we turn them into a 3D layer, it will actually be invisible because we are set to advanced 3D. So what we can do here to fix this is duplicate my camera, and I'll select my new camera and both my Saber layers, and I'll pre-compose them and move all attributes. Let's call this glow. And if we go into this glow composition, I can turn it back to classic 3D, and I'll make both layers here 3D. So now we've got some transfer mode here we can play with, and it also follows the original camera from the main composition. So if you animate the camera differently, for example, if I want to go here and, I don't know, create a keyframe for my camera around here, what you're going to need to do is basically copy the camera, go into this composition, remove the old one, and paste it. So this is a pretty simple solution if you want to incorporate different layers into advanced 3D. To give this a final touch here of my composition, I'll set my text layer to be a bit darker, so maybe around this area. And we can also go down into the material options here, and I'll up the shininess and intensity to 100, so we get this sort of a reflective text. Now maybe I'll just make it a bit brighter. And we can also create a new light. and we want to make it an environment light and cast shadows set to on. Now with environment lights in Advanced 3D, what we can do is drop the HDRI image here, which you can get similar files on a website like Polyheaven, which includes a bunch of free assets like this one. Then if we go into our environment light here, we can set the source to be the image, and now basically our text is reflecting that image. So now once we hit R, we can rotate the environment around the text here and create your own kind of look. Now, one last final touch that I've added in my original composition is duplicate this glow layer, and we'll add a CC radial fast blur, and we can bump this up to maybe 80 so we get these sort of rays here. And again, it's all gonna follow along because it's the same composition. Alright, I hope you found this quick tutorial useful. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.